Welcome to Tribe of Humankind. This is our second recording, our second gathering to get together to speak about the spiritual evolution of the human species. First, to speak to what we feel is most urgent to be talked about on the planet right now, to have the conversations that maybe we're all feeling, but we're not finding the platform to address them. We want to speak to what we understand to be happening on planet Earth and what we feel is moving quickly into our reality and how we can all show up for that. And how can we unify the consciousness when we have so many different belief systems happening out there right now? And we seem to be very split and disconnected from each other, but maybe we have a stronger connection that we could speak about that would bring us all together into a more unified field of consciousness. And we want to address some of those things tonight, this morning, for our whole arc of time. And thank you, each of you, my four friends here with me today. Thanks for showing up for this call and for, this calling that I have and I've asked you to be a part of. So thank you for being here today. And let's take a moment to introduce ourselves, say where you're from. Feel free to add in maybe, any other little details about your person of even like a astrological sign or some more details of that, a little bit of community. And we're going to add one more thing just in the introduction of if you could speak to one of the major, like, one of the top three things that have affected your being or your world perspective, one of your top three life events that have changed or altered you and changed how you see the world and understand the world to be. If you could include that in your hello, and we'll try to keep that in the 2 to 3 minutes of our shares. And I'll pass the mic around to whoever's ready.
I don't mind going first since I'm new to the circle.
Yes.
So my name is Aisha Javons, and I grew up on the islands of North Carolina, the coast there. And I moved though. I pretty much left the life that I knew when I was 21, and I moved to San Francisco. I had a dear friend out there who welcomed me out. I was making huge changes in my life, just following my heart, and that was the first time I'd really done that, especially to that degree. And yeah, I always had personal development and spirituality a part of my life, but it wasn't until the end of my third marriage that I realized I really needed to make some huge changes. And it wasn't that I didn't know what they were, I just didn't know how to do them. But I swore to myself that I was going to do it. I was not going to be fearful anymore. And so that was 2017. And ever since then, it has just been initiation after initiation for me. And I have vowed to the divine that I will dance with her. And I am not afraid of walking through the fire, as I call it, anymore. I welcome it. It exhilarates me. And every day is about a daily practice of me devoting myself to myself so that I can really be a clear vessel to this world. So that
Mm,
through my heart, I can be that change that I want to see. Even though that sounds cliche, but I really do believe it's through each of us that the world does change, that the reality does change. And so I started, just to be very raw, I had three miscarriages in a row
mm,
in 2021. And that literally was also initiation that I was prepared for, thankfully, because I'd done a lot of work. And so I started a small women's circle. It's called Sacred Circle for Pregnancy Loss. And so, yeah, and I also have a small company, and it's something that I devote myself to as much as I can, and it's in the raw wellness and soul coaching. And so, my intention with that is to just really empower women who maybe felt lost like I did for a long time, and help them to come home to themselves. and remind them of their worth, of their fire, of their truth and light. And I'm really passionate about it. And it feels very, yeah, it feels very in alignment with my soul. And so I'm still working on building that. But yeah, what was the question, Shane, again, that you said you wanted us to incorporate? Do you mind reminding me?
Like if there was one of the top three
Mhm.
things that have like really changed your life or affect your present worldview or your understanding of reality, like what's been a big shift in your life?
Wow. Well, so when I was 21, when I left the religion that I was born into. And so everyone um, disowned me, including my parents. And they no longer spoke with me, and so that was also another, I didn't really realize how much that affected me actually until recently. And
Mm,
so it really changed, how I saw myself, but it also was like the medicine that I needed once I was finally able to really get in there and sit with that unknown space. And so it's really helped me to see how other people, how they're wounded, how so much abandonment shows up in so many different ways, and how it's causing people to limit themselves. It's causing them to believe things about themselves that aren't true. So, oh, and the religion was Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, yes, that's right. Shane shared with me. I was like,
Me
oh, I can't even
too.
hear. Yes,
Oh,
yes. So more power to you, and I would love to talk to you more. But honestly,
mm.
what a journey. All I can say, and I'm grateful for it. It's still is something I work through, but I'm very grateful for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that beautiful share, Aisha. Like we're looking forward to as we get into the meat of the discussion today, more of your shares. And I'm sure that's opened up a lot of questions in our group already. But
Okay.
we'll pass the introductions around to keep the energy flowing.
yeah, I feel I can go next because I'm really as soon as you said disowned, I'm like, that sounds familiar. And yeah, and I really, let's see. I've already introduced myself a couple of different ways in my personal intro and then on our first group call, so I'll add more that I haven't said. And astrologically, I'm a Gemini in the Western system, but in the Vedic system, I'm a Taurus. It's really worthwhile to check out those differences because the Vedic system is just it's 30 degrees different, but it also accounts for the constellations being different sizes in the sky, which is important. And I do
Mm,
align with being a Taurus. And in the human design system, which I also really love, I am a manifesting generator and a 2-4 profile, which is a hermit opportunist. So I do
mm,
my hermetism and then come out of my cave when there's an opportunity, and then I go back into my hermetism.
uh,
And something that I didn't share in my intro before in terms of this unfoldment into my lifestyle is the 2 abortions that I had. You mentioned your miscarriages. You know, it's a huge initiation as a woman, whether it's intentional, for me, like intentionally choosing not to have that child, or unintentional with a miscarriage where it's, the divine or the soul or who knows what that makes that choice. But just to go through that experience of being a woman and choosing not to go through with having children,
mm,
and just the clear no that it was for me when I was pregnant, has been this a really powerful catalyst in my life, and has clarified for me that I'm not meant to have children this life. So that's
mm,
been really powerful because it's showed me my path. It showed me that to be a mother, to be an intentional portal and creator for human life is a very powerful thing and a really gracious decision to be making, and not one that I'm choosing in this life. And something that I don't know if my ancestors for many, many, many generations in my matriarchal line even knew was a choice. So that feels like a really powerful thing to be that gatekeeper, to have a womb and to have a yoni and to be that gatekeeper for life and to make that choice for myself, or to be a conduit for the soul to make a choice to come through or not. And another correlation that I have with that is that I was a twin in the womb, and she didn't live, so I came through and she didn't. So there was just this dichotomy of birth and death that happened. When I came into the world, she died. So then there's this crossroad or this choice point that I have in relationship with being a womb carrier with the possibility of creating life, and being really intentional with that sacred choice. And yeah, I appreciate the awareness of the ability to know my body now and to understand what that takes to come into present moment awareness. How do I want to say it shows me the power that we have. It shows me that we can do anything and that we can create anything. And that story has been a really potent part of who I am and what I do choose to create. So I'm feeling some tenderness as I speak to it. So I'm just going to end it there because I feel the tenderness.
Yeah. Thank you for, being honest and raw about letting that share from Asia move you to speak on a similar topic for you. And
It's really beautiful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Rua. I can hear the cat, like, when you're in the depth of your sharing, the cat kind of almost like wants to come in here just outside, like, yeah, let me give Rua a hug, Cat is just like, let me hop in there. Yeah, it really fascinates me, like how, like, animals are so sensitive, especially I find cats in particular, like they just feel. Yeah, I definitely think that they're in a hierarchy. But yeah, coming back to the sharing, coming back to sharing intention, I think you set it up as such a powerful sharings right off the bat. And of course I've done my introduction before, but just to say it again, like I'm Mano, I'm calling in from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I was born and raised in Sri Lanka, and I guess what comes up for me, it's like I'm Taurus, according to my chart, but according to my Vedic astrology, which is what's commonly used, I'm Leo, which is kind of like, how's that possible? It's like I got two symbols. I resonate with both of them. And I would, like, similar to what Rua said, I'm also a manifesting generator with a split. So there's like a lot that was moving through in my chart, and I'd say, like, some of the things that had a shift in my reality or my awareness. It's to say that, like, my first time me experiencing natural disaster. So this was in 2004. I was 10 years old, and yeah, Sri Lanka was hit with tsunami. It was funny enough. It was actually a Sunday morning, day after Christmas, on the 26th, and we all came back from the mass, like, just all hanging out at home, just having some breakfast. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden we hear this noise. It's almost like as somebody threw something at a beehive. This like a, and you're like, what is that noise? It's out of the blue. Like, we'd never hear anything like that. And then, we just go outside to the street, and we look to the left. That's where the ocean is. And we see this like a massive waves, like coming out of nowhere, and everyone is running in the opposite direction. And we didn't even know that it was called tsunami. So everyone was like, the ocean is coming, the ocean is coming. I'm like, what does that even mean? You know, but we just all like start running, like start running in the opposite direction. And to get to a higher ground, we were like there for like almost 30 minutes, like I keep running, until we get to these like in the middle of the city. Um, yeah, that experience was like both traumatizing because everyone was kind of split up, but the good thing is people knew each other. So I was with my friends, I wasn't sure where my family were. We couldn't even like call each other because all the phone lines were down. And I think that was definitely something that showed me, you know, anything can happen at any moment. Um, yeah, yeah. So that was quite a thing that shook my reality, to say the least. Yeah.
Wow, I never knew that about you, Mano. You had no idea, huh? You just hear a noise and you go out and it's happening.
It's happening. Yeah.
Whoa.
There's no warning. There's nothing. Just out of the blue. Nobody knew that was happening.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a part of your exit out of Sri Lanka, or was it like?
Yeah. Yeah. That was like the beginning of the exit out of Sri Lanka, and that process took about 2 to 4 years. My father moved to Canada first, and then he established a life, and then we came after, me and my brothers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's so many stories that's tied into that, but for the just to keep in mind of time and to keep progressing forward, I'll keep the story at this point.
Thank you for that share, Mano.
I just want to say it's interesting to hear you talk about the tsunami and how similar it sounds to the lava eruption that I experienced in 2018 on the Big Island. And it was that way. It's just the lava is coming out of the ground and you don't know where it's going to come from, and it just spewing out of the ground. So the fire and the water are just both such a force. So it's just nice to feel that parallel right now.
Absolutely. And, you know, I also think about like earthquakes. You know, earthquakes on the other hand, you know, we rely on the earth for so long and we believe that the earth is solid, like we can trust the earth, you know, the term grounding, right? And imagine when that ground starts shaking beneath your feet. I'm like, holy, what now?
Yeah.
So nature is definitely a force not to mess with. Yeah.
I like it. It's an interesting theme building right now.
I don't know what to say, really. I introduced myself a couple of times, and you know, if there was something that changed, you know, that was formative, I'd say you know, there was a non-stop presence and a non-stop relationship with something, and I did have the classic enlightenment experience. I did have the sort of there was a lot of synchronicity for about 3 years for me, like unbelievable synchronicity. Like I'd think of a quote that I couldn't remember, say, oh, I can't remember that, never mind. Literally get up, go to a coffee shop, there'd be a step ladder, walk up the step ladder to the top, look at the book, open the page, and it'd be the quote I couldn't remember. Like that heavy nonstop for about 3 years. And amongst that, I did have an enlightenment experience. And it's a really interesting story. I'm not going to tell it now, but the main part of it was I was working in a place that was called Maitreya, and I'd had some weird stuff before that about Buddhism, and I knew nothing. I didn't have a religion. My religion is consciousness, I guess. And okay, I'll tell you. So I bought a picture. There's loads of stuff leading up to this. Some people had a calendar, and on the calendar was a Buddha, and I loved it. And I went back about 3 months later and said, "Can I get that? You've used it now. The month's gone. Can I have it?" And they gave it to me. And then I was walking home, and I had £10. Money was tight all the time, and I had £10, and it was for food. And there was a frame. This guy was selling a frame, a really lovely frame for £10. Really just simple wooden frame. He just bashed it together, and I had £10, and I gave him my food money for this frame, right? And I can't explain any of this. I don't know. Anyway, instinct. bought it, put it on my wall. Then a program comes on about a week later saying, in a house fire, what's the one thing you would save? And I looked straight at this picture of the Buddha and the picture frame around it, and I just knew that it was that. That's what I would save. And I was having strange dreams, and I felt like I was being taught by guides, right? And so I go to a bookshop cafe. I walk in, and the guy that's always been there isn't there, and there's a new guy. And the name that I woke up with in my head was Herman Hesse. And I thought, well, what's that, a Nazi or something? Is that like a Nazi? Why have I got Herman Hesse in my head? And I walk into the bookshop, and this guy's name is Will, and he's a Buddhist, and he's wearing Buddhist stuff, and he's got joysticks going and music playing, and he's wearing the robes, and he's at the bookshop. He's looking after it for the guy who and I've never seen anyone else there. And I said to him, "Have you ever heard of Herman Hesse?" And he looks at me, and his eyes are all twinkly, and he says, when the student is ready, the master arrives, right? And I'm like, sure, okay. But Herman Hesse, and he goes over and gets the book, and it's Siddhartha, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyone listening, Siddhartha is like a sort of a Buddhist sort of parable, if you like, about enlightenment and the earthiness of reality compared to the spiritual sort of way of experiencing it, and the messiness of the process and all of that, right? So it's very interesting. So anyway, all of this Buddhist stuff is happening, and then I get I've got multiple jobs. I get a job at a cafe called Maitreya, and I say, well, what's Maitreya? And I said, oh, it's a Buddha of love that hasn't been incarnated yet. I'm like, oh, okay. And I go upstairs, and there's 3 statues of Buddhas in each corner. It's an art exhibition, and one of the corners is empty. So I sit down in the corner, and I've never meditated. I don't, I just sort of sit in the corner. Okay. And there's a picture on the wall of a leaf, and it says the actual leaf from a leaf that fell on the architect of this exhibition, while from the actual Buddha tree, Buddha Gaia tree or something, under which the Buddha achieved enlightenment. This is all going to come together now, right? Well, I looked at the leaf, and I've got a certain personality. I'm easing it off now, but my initial response was, yeah, fuck off, right? That was 3,000 years ago. That's not the leaf, okay? Right? From the tree. So I'm having these synchronicities in this real thick, real experience that I'm aware of, and everyone around me isn't, okay? And but what I want to say is that I had a nervous breakdown in the morning. My life was too difficult. Some people had died, stuff had happened, and I just absolutely cried, and I sobbed, and my heart just opened. Like, you protect your heart, don't you? You all this stuff's happening, you find a way to get through it, and I just let go. And as I let go, this place where I've been staying, there were 3 trees that intertwined, and they didn't compete against each other. They seemed to cooperate. And I'd always look at them, and every time the sun was shining, and I was listening to some old-fashioned music, some sort of English Celtic music, and the trees started to dance to the music, and there was no wind. I'm a musician. I know what good timing is. And the leaves were moving when it was triplets, and they'd stop and move back and forth when it went back to quarter notes, and they were perfectly in time with this music. And I just cried and cried and cried, and I was in the most pain I've ever felt. And then suddenly I just felt bliss, absolute bliss. And I felt like something entered into my space and me, and it was absolutely pure love. And it was like super consciousness. And it happened the moment I looked at the trees, and I decided, I said, I love those trees. And I felt that I loved those trees, that they'd always been comforting and beautiful and interesting, and they were alive. And I suddenly connected with them, and I felt them as life force, and I felt my life force and their force communicate for real. Like, and the trees said, I felt like the trees said, we love you too, right? We've seen you and we love you, right? And as soon as that happened, it was like, bam, just this. I just felt like all of a sudden I was the universe, and the universe was me. And that, yeah, it was pure love. Okay, so that had some kind of effect on me, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I love this story. I love this story. And what's coming from me to me right now is that any tree can be the Buddha tree. Every tree can be the Buddha tree because we're all the same conscious awareness. And all it takes is that love and that presence. And that's it. All of a sudden, we're enlightened. The trees are enlightened. We're speaking to the trees, and everything is love. And that's really all there is underneath all of the human stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It's beautiful you said, Ra, and just to see your expression, as you're speaking, especially, when you start crying and really experiencing consciousness. And it's just beautiful to see your face, Lex. And I can just still, it's almost like I can feel as you have re-experienced that memory within yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, thanks for your share.
I'm noticing a theme of traumas involved in everyone's share today, and how they seem to be tied in with healing or awakening or shifts there, and present in those moments, maybe taking us to our tipping point or our breaking points.
Agreed. Oh, can I just add one thing? This is the worst timing ever, and I so apologize. When I finished my shift at the place where I'd sat and meditated and had that little thing with the leaf, when I came home, so in the morning I had that experience I told you about. Then I went and did my shift in this place and found that exhibit, which was about Buddhism again, and sat down in the corner. I'm not a Buddhist, by the way. When I got home, one of the leaves was heart-shaped and had turned bright red, completely out of season. And I felt like it was like evidence, like proof, like in reality had literally knew that it would help me to have some physical evidence. Sorry, I just had to add that. I'm sorry to break you off there, Rua.
Perfect. I love that the leaf turned red for you.
Yeah.
And I want to
go ahead.
Oh, I just want to reflect what you said, Shane, about that breaking point or that breaking of the spirit or of the heart opening to something really difficult, turning into a transformation that creates more love, more awareness, more presence from that depth. And I think of an image of a tree. The branches can only go as far out as the roots go down and in. The stability of the tree is in the roots, and it's in the dark, and it's in the underworld, so that the branches and the leaves can reach to the light.
Aisha, I was just going to invite us if you had any reflections on Lex's share before we move on.
So many. And I, like you, Lex, love to talk, and I always have something to say. So I'm really trying to just be in and soak it up, because that's something else I wanted to allow myself to have the opportunity to do in this circle, because there's just so much richness here. But Lex, I get it. When I moved up north, I was living in San Francisco, and I moved up north about 3 years ago, and it's beautiful here. It's where all the redwoods are. I had always loved nature, and my father brought us up to be in nature and have a garden and to really, respect it. But something different is changed for me here. And the relationship that I cultivated with Mother Gaia, I speak to her every morning. I call her in my sessions with clients, and I really introduce her to my clients so that they can start aligning themselves with her and her rhythms and her wisdom. And well, there was one day that I walked out on my back porch, and I have a beautiful view. There's some houses, but there's like mountains and trees, and it's all just perfectly, scattered. And it was like the sky was talking to me, and I had never experienced that before. It was like everything was there for me and wanted my attention. But I felt for the first time that I got it, that I was it. And it
Uh,
was like this exchange that was happening. And I had this thought when he was talking, when Lex, when you were talking about the heart, the red heart-shaped leaf. I too need symbols and little treats left for me. It's just something that my soul really appreciates, and it just helps me to trust, because I'm still working on some level. But I feel like sometimes we ourselves, being everything, it we actually set those things up for ourselves. We call those things in. And that's what that relationship with the divine is all about, is like allowing her to surprise us. But we being involved with her is actually what allows those things to come into our reality. So your heart, just pure surrendering, and almost having like a complete identity and ego death in that moment, that is, I find bliss in that every time as well. And that's why I really want to share with anyone that I work with, or anyone that will listen, that you know your wound is your medicine. Your wound is the answer. And I never could see that for so long, but it's really like you were talking about, Shane, this theme of trauma, but somehow, that is where the enlightenment is starting, or the activation of, coming home to ourself happens. I truly believe that it's our perspective and our mind state is so important and powerful in this life. It literally just it decides what kind of life you're going to have and what you're going to be able to create. Yeah, those are just some of the things that I was thinking about.
hmm, hmm, hmm. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce myself in to the space, and even kind of roll us into the next phase of hosting ourselves in the presence of, like, bringing in what's feeling most real for us into the circle to initiate the conversation. You know, I do want us to be speaking to our belief about what's happening on this planet right now, and what our most, in our guts, in our hearts, what we're feeling is unfolding on the planet, and what role we have to play in that. And that's the underlying theme. But I also know that that reality starts in the realness of our lives and what we're going through in our relationships, in our struggles, in our showing up every day. That's that's where it really begins. And so I'm happy to start the conversations in the most real place that we can access, here with each other, and for ourselves to call forth. And so before I even hit record today for our greater audience, I shared with this small circle that I was having a hard time showing up even tonight. And that's kind of the reality of my day and my presence, is that I've been struggling a good bit with just wrestling with myself and my own energy. And yeah, efforting, and sometimes feeling like my efforts, I'll spend my efforts until I'm exhausted or spent, and then still be unsure of whether they were even focused in the right direction. And I've hit many points in my life where I can't get up and go to work anymore because I feel like it's not helping. It's not helping anything. It's not helping me. It's not helping the planet. It's not helping get the conversation going for the whole human race. And so I'm so happy to be here and to be doing this. And yeah, I want to say that. And I'm really happy to have Aisha here today. Um, I introduced her briefly to the circle, letting letting everyone know that we've known each other since we were teenagers, which is true. And what I didn't share, but I just would like to share with the audience, is that Aisha and I got married when I was 20, and we were together for 4 years before we parted ways. But so she's a very special person in my life and in my heart. And to have this opportunity to have her still in my life and to be able to share this powerful conversation, not just because of who she is in my life, but because of also who she's become now, that this kind of conversation is real and important to her still. And she's gone through many journeys as I have to arrive at this kind of moment in her own life. And yeah, so I just want to offer that out into the circle that yeah, my heart is stretched open and feeling good and feeling tender and all of that. And I'm happy to be here to be having this conversation today.
Shane. When Shane and I spoke recently, I was telling him how grateful I was that, because, to be able to create something and to be a part of something that's really powerful, which I believe this circle is, um, it takes both people to really be open, to be humble, and to really want to seek truth. And for us to go on our journey and on our ways, and then to be arriving here in this space, um, it's it's just really validating on so many levels, of also what's possible. And I also feel like it's important for viewers or anyone that it's meant to touch to see that it is possible, and that there are souls that sometimes as humans we think have a certain role in our life, but really it might be something even more, important or bigger than we can't see. And I'm just stay in gratitude, and I stay in gratitude for Shane as well, and for the kind of heart that he has and for his passion for this as well. It's very inspiring, and I'm really grateful that you invited me here. So thank you.
Thank you, Aisha.
What I see is harmony. I see New Earth as complete unconditional love, just as you two are displaying right now. That to separate from a certain configuration doesn't mean that there's less love present. And I'm in an uncoupling process right now with someone, and I love him so much. And our separating has actually brought us closer, and we're just holding each other and crying together and being real and authentic with each other, not pushing each other away because we didn't fit in a box of partnership. We're like, wow, we were together for this time and now we're not. And how can we bless and honor each other in that experience? And so I see that mending, whether it's an intimate relationship or not, in all relationships. I see stepping out of the personal into the collective. I see us growing into the capacity of being in unconditional love perpetually and not ever closing our hearts, not ever needing to fear or to doubt or to question trust. And when I listen to each of our stories of awakening or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, I see transcendence. I see us harnessing the ability of taking something that feels impossible or feels unknown and creating something really beautiful from that. And because each of us have had these experiences, and so many of us are having these awakening experiences and these heart opening experiences, that tells me I know where we're going as a collective consciousness, and we can't go back, no matter how much manipulation and abuse and control looks to be in the world and in society, and it looks like a mess. It looks like a shithole sometimes. Like, how are we going to untangle this? We really fucked it up. But I know how we're going to do it. We're going to do it with our open hearts, and we're going to do it together. And so what I'm seeing is we're awakening and we're learning how to love ourselves, and we're remembering how to love each other. And anything is possible from that place, no matter what else is going on. And that's what I see.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I say something on the end of what Rua was saying that really made me think about the fact that that's why it's so important, and it reminded me of what you were saying, Shane, about, how you were feeling today and how sometimes you wonder if all the energy you put forth even mattered. I think it does. I think it all matters. And I think that sometimes we overthink it, or we have this perfectionist mind state. I know personally myself, it's something that I am working through, um, because really everything you do is perfect in every moment, especially when it's coming from the heart, and these intentions of love and really want to repair and be a part of, a new world or creating a new world. And so I, with what Rua was saying, I believe that too. I believe it's really through, because other people are wakening up, they need the example. They need to be able to see that it's possible. And so yeah, it just made me think about you, Shane. Like, yes, everything that you're doing, it matters, even on the smallest scale.
Mm. Thank you, Isha.
There's one more piece that I want to add that I think is important too with this particular process for you, Shane, is the receptivity of recalibration. So
Mm.
sometimes I think, am I investing my energy appropriately? That's the divine energy saying, hey, are you really focusing on the thing that's going to bring you the most joy, the most passion, and the most fulfillment? If not, are you open to being receptive to being recalibrated into that divine will? Because when our soul is aligned to the divine will, there is no suffering. There's no need for questions. We just know. So that it's that receptivity and that surrender piece that's also really important for us to be letting go of control of what we think we're supposed to do.
I like that, Rua. Thank you. I'm gonna work with that one.
I'm really loving the level of intimacy we're creating among ourselves in the space right now. Personally speaking, I can notice within myself, there's a part of me that wants to dive in to that even more, and there's also a part of me I notice there's a level of nervousness that's there, like the fact that I'm on camera. It's
Yeah.
like just that. It's almost like my heart tinkles and contraction, and there's an openness at the same time. I'm like, okay, I'm learning to just breathe into it. I'm like, okay, I've done this before. um, yeah, I mean, everything you're just sharing, I definitely resonate with that. I'll start off with what Shane was talking about. Asking is what I'm doing, makes sense. And that piece, it's powerful because there are definitely moments, I wake up in the morning and question, is what I'm doing helping the higher consciousness, or is what I'm doing, like, is it helping the world to move forward? And coming back to what Alicia was also echoing, I think every little thing coming back to our awareness, staying present, staying positive, and knowing that the universe responds back to the energy that we put out there. And am I able to shift that within myself? Am I able to move that through? Is my awareness strong enough to recognize that, okay, I'm not feeling in the greatest space, but there's something I can do? And lately I've been finding going for a walk has been really helpful, taking the dog out, just 10 minutes walk each way. It's just so nice to shift the energy, move it. And I'm not so stuck in the stories of the mind or the feelings, as soon as there is some sort of a momentum that's unfolding. And also, like earlier today, I was telling Shane and the rest of the group, I was working on the video, just editing them and things like that, and visioning within myself, like envisioning a brighter future. So that way my energy is constantly moving in that direction. Whereas, like, sometimes when I get pulled into this, like, a dark world, and that's where my energy is going, am I aware enough to recognize that and to snap out of it and to do what I need to do to shift that energy? So I think what you're doing right now, it's very powerful, Shane. These conversations are very important. Not only are we having these conversations and evolving our level of thinking, we also sharing this with the larger audience. Whoever feel calls to, they'll naturally feel pulled toward this energy, and they'll see, and then they'll resonate. And And it's very powerful, going on to the second topic, that you're still in beautiful relationship with your ex-wife. I mean, Alicia, every relationship I've ever, what's up?
Asia.
Asia.
Yeah.
Yeah, every relationship I've had, I'm still like a very good, friends with them. I find that, I've spent so much time getting to know this person one-on-one. We went through like a thick and thin, and all the good and bad, right? Like that relationship, that time that we spent together, it's invaluable. And I don't see like a why we should just like stop that. When you break up, can we still accept that? Am I still able to come through whatever limiting belief or my jealousy or like me not feeling good enough because my partner is with someone else, or like a letting go of that comparison, and to be able to just drop into that state of vulnerability and to drop the ego. And that takes courage. That takes like a strong amount of courage to be able to do that, and to trust in that space. So I think it's really beautiful what I'm witnessing, and what is possible. Yeah. So nice for those two pieces. Thank you.
Yeah, so my contribution would be there's so many directions that we could move towards. I think there's some overlap of us learning about each other and hearing each other and that sort of stuff, but also trying to present something to an audience. And so that might be messing your head a little bit, Shane, possibly. Where do you draw the line? What's too much sharing? When do we get to the meat and do the work that you want to do? Is the work to show your vulnerability and that you're having a bad day, or my head's going crazy? So it's a bit of a balance. So my contribution energetically is that I would get us to investigate things, because I think that authenticity happens through our communication skills and our vocabulary, and we attach meanings to things, and so people may attach different meanings to the same words. And so when we're communicating, are we actually communicating what we're trying to? When we send a message and we're certain that the person has received it, have they translated it in their associated meanings and their vocabulary? And in that process, has there actually been a really clear, precise transference between people, right? And so this is something that I want to push as we go along, right? I've got some stuff about the divine, which I'd love us to talk about. I'd love us to investigate that. But right now, I would offer the title of this is Tribe of Humankind.
Yes.
So we could investigate that a little bit. What is humankind? Is it one tribe or is it many tribes? And what makes a tribe a tribe? Those kind of things. Does everyone fancy a bit of that?
I like what you're saying, and let's get to that, but let's do one step in front of that. And I would like you to just kind of take a moment to, before we move forward on that, to just offer your share on what was spoken already and like where that lands in your body.
Well, it's difficult for me. I'm learning. About the idea of even paying yourself attention. Like I think I'm on a mission, and I think it's a suicide mission, and it's not supposed to be fun, and it's not supposed to be pleasant, and it's not supposed to be enjoyable. And if I survive it and get anything done at all, that'll be great. That's kind of where I'm at the moment. And so I'm listening to you and I'm feeling you, and I sense your pain and your trauma, and that we all deserve better and that sort of stuff. But I'm also sort of like, the problems, okay, there's work to be done. And as well, so it's trying to get that balance. I would suggest, possibly, because I do think that the spiritual community is in tatters. I think that the communication that people are having is almost valueless. And I think we've forgotten how to think, we've forgotten how to speak. And what's happening is we've got a sort of a tourism kind of awareness. It's like, you know, like people investigate things to the level where they go to the gift shop and go on the guided tour of what the thing is. You know, it's like they come back with the equivalent of a spiritual sombrero on a donkey, or, you know, like we need richer, deeper investigation. We need to understand the essence of the things that we're lightly communicating. We need the deeper versions. And I think part of that will change our relationship with the things in our lives. And that part of that is the part of the healing. Whereas you could just go around in circles, otherwise, in constant confusion, trying to fix things in ways that won't fix things.
Mhm.
I want to speak to something here because I noticed that my heart is racing for a couple of reasons. The first one, there's a lot of language around we're doing this and we have this experience and I'm wanting to hear more of your experience, Lex, because when I'm grouped in or there's a we are, I'm like, well, wait, that's not true for me. And when I heard you say, oh, okay, there's trauma and we all deserve better, I'm like, no, we don't all deserve better. We're creating the trauma so that our soul can evolve. This is a conscious evolutionary experience. And so I find my heart races when I hear something that's not true for me, but then I feel in it somehow. And I want to invite the agenda to drop because I'm hearing you say we need to understand and we've got to and how and let's and there's just a lot of agenda, and I want to stay in my heart. And so when there's things that are being spoken and happening kind of fast, my heart starts to race with that mind racing. And then I'm struggling to be fully present when I can't feel your heart and what you're saying.
My heart is in what I'm saying. My mind is as well. So, for instance, the divine for me is masculine and feminine, right? And we've been through a period where a lot of the religions have created a masculine description, and they've created a masculine ideology, and that has transferred into the world in a certain way. I have a belief system. I do believe in good and evil. So I have my personal belief system, which I'm trying to skirt around and not bring in. I'm trying to just go for some sort of middle, neutral place where we can arrive in investigation.
Bring in yourself. The point is not to stay neutral, but to bring your unique part into the conversation. And I can bring my unique part. And then we can get to that depth that you're saying that you want, but you have to bring what you are to it to get there. But you have to drop the agenda too.
Yeah.
Well, you say agenda.
Hold on 1 second, Lex.
Okay.
I can pause you for a second. Rua, I agree with you. And thank you for speaking up. There's what she's saying is valid. And I just ask that you take a moment to take that to heart. And what you're speaking of, I think, is going to have its time and place to come out in the proper way. But the way we're going to arrive there is the way Rua is saying. We're going to arrive there by you claiming and speaking for yourself and locating it in your body more than just like in the thoughts and the speed of like needing to arrive there and grouping us in, because we're going to need that like play of back and forth of you offering yours a bite at a time, so that, and then allowing some space for other people to respond to it before you go too far down one track, because not everybody's on that same track with you. And also what I was inviting you into is to like speak to what had just gone down, and you bypassed it a bit to get to a topic. And it was like, and I was asking for you to just respond to what was happening and locate that within yourself. So I just want to speak to that. Like,
well, everyone's suffering. The whole world's suffering. There's terrible things happening in the world. I think about them all the time. I sense them. I feel them. I have nightmares every night. So it's very difficult to slow down and connect with my own or you guys' personal pain.
It's not true that the whole world is suffering. That's what I'm saying. Like, I hear you say that, but it doesn't feel true for me. So I need to speak that that's not true for me and doesn't ring true in my heart.
May I share something?
Yes, please.
Lex and Rua, actually, both of everything you've said, it resonates with me a lot. Lex, sometimes when you first started talking about, like, sometimes it feels like this mission, and it's like, be super serious, and I got to do this, and I, like, you know what? I feel you on that, and I'm like, why isn't anyone else this serious about it? Or why isn't anyone, like, is anyone else seeing what's happening? But
Yes.
what I've realized is nothing can change if we don't allow ourselves, like Rua was talking about, to really be our true self, and not water it down, and to really allow also ourselves to experience pleasure, to experience joy, because that's also a part of life. And that actually is what really truly opens us up to any possibility of anything changing. And so, Lex, I love your passion. I love your dedication and devotion to what is you and important to you. But the only way that it can have a true, like, lasting effect on the collective is if you share it to the nitty gritty of it. Don't bypass, don't get neutral. I did that my whole life. No one benefits from being neutral or being all things to all people. And that was hard for me. When you're an empath, I get it, me too. You're so sensitive to everything, and not everyone feels it that way. So it's an opportunity to go, okay, what's mine and what's not mine? I actually don't. Yeah, when I start to feel the collective's energy and it's heavy, I go, I send love out to the collective right now. I don't have to hold it. How do I need to reach myself and love myself right now? Okay, I'm going to do that, because in that, that's when you actually become beneficial to everyone else. And so I love what both of you said. And Lex, I hear you. You, like, want to get in, and you want to get into what matters. And I love that. I'm the same way. But I think that the only way we, like everyone was saying, that we can really do that is by truly sharing everything that you are. It's in that vulnerability that happens. But I love what both of you are saying, but it really does take us all to really be raw here. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's uncomfortable, but that's actually where truth lives, in the rawness of the heart.
Yeah. Beautifully said, Aisha. Mano, I would like your perspective on this.
Well, yeah, definitely, for me, I resonate with Lex in so many ways, because I was that person. I was that person. Okay, I want to go do things. I want to get things done. I want to heal the world. For the longest time, I projected my energy outside of myself. Like, I this, I that. Like, and what I didn't understand was that I was neglecting myself. I was neglecting my own being by putting so much energy outside of myself and looking for answers outside. And even though within myself, I believed that, I am the change. And as I change, the collective will change. But I didn't understand that that was more like a surface level belief that I had. And then when it comes to actually making the change, my ego was too comfortable. So it's in a sense that it was almost hiding by projecting that the change is out there. So when I really looked into that, it was a moment I really need to face. It's almost like the two aspects of my beings, and which one gets to live and which one gets to transmute. And yeah, so right now I'm on the other side of it, other side where I'm not spending energy trying to change the world, change the society. Nothing. I'm doing what I genuinely feel passionate about, what gives me energy. And if that genuinely have an effect on the outside world, great. If it doesn't, also great. And I find that it's been like a really healthy for my psyche, healthy for my energy. And I do feel the collective. There are moments I'm, just really just feeling the pain And the other day I would just like drop down crying because of the pain that I was feeling within myself, but I wasn't able to recognize where that was coming from. There was not necessarily story, there was just sadness, like a tremendous amount of sadness that was moving through me. And I would just like get into a bowl and I would just like crying. And I'm like, I don't understand it, but I'm just crying. Um, and then I felt a relief through that. I never really allowed myself to do that before.
Mhm.
So I'm really noticing, like as I shift the energy from the outside into inside, that's bringing more healing from within, and I feel yeah, happy after once I move through that. I feel emptiness, and part of my practice it is to sit in that emptiness and to it's the unknown. Like it feels scary at times in that space of not knowing. It's not the place the mind is used to, but I know all these things. But when I'm in it, it's some of the scariest things I've ever felt.
Mm.
Just to breathe through that process, and that's what's really alive within me as we go through this concept. Mm. Mm.
Lex, what's your takeaway from those shares from everybody?
I don't really know what happened, so I'm going to sit until I understand. So
I respond to Mano's share, Shane, or would you like to sit in some silence some more?
No, we can you can speak to Mano there. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mano. I feel like you were really speaking to when there's something collective happening that maybe, let's see, let's reframe this. When there's willingness of a soul to feel something that is being avoided in the collective, there doesn't need to be a story, but sometimes there's a feeling. That happens to me a lot. I'll get doubled over in grief or rage or something, and there's nothing that's coming up for me in a story. And I realize, oh, okay, this isn't personal. Maybe there's some personal strings in there that I can attach to. My ego wants to understand, oh, maybe this is about this, or maybe it's about that. But actually, it doesn't matter what it's about. There's an energy of an emotion coming through, and it just wants to be felt by the first willing participant, willing to feel it. And if there's a vast collective avoidance happening around a certain kind of pain, I get this image of it sort of rippling out, and it just needs to be felt by somebody. It doesn't even matter if it's not directly happening, but we're all sharing this experience. We're all holding ourselves and each other through this experience. And so, yeah, we're conduits. We're conduits for these emotions and for these experiences. And the surrender piece is really important, that you allowed yourself to let that emotion come through, as I have too. I've allowed myself to come through instead of trying to understand it or control it or wanting to stop it because like, oh no, what's happening? But just, yeah, it's the unknown, it's the mystery. And we don't know what it's going to be like when we open that up. And so what's really coming forward for me right now is that through this conversation, we've each talked about really powerful things that have happened in our individual lives and how it's opened us up to more awareness, but that we still feel this collective unawareness and this pain. And so maybe a good way to continue the conversation over time is speaking to that, speaking to how to get beyond that really uncomfortable place of the unknown, or how to navigate that. Where do you find the relief and the transcendence and the awareness through that difficulty? Because most people don't know how to get through it, and they feel pain and it's like, nope, I want to close that down. we know that when you get beyond the pain, it's beautiful and there's treasures and there's more space and openness. But that's not taught to us. That emotional intelligence or emotional coherence is not taught to us. It's something I had to learn on my own, and probably we all had to learn how to navigate on our own. So that feels like a really important part, how to get beyond the difficulty of things we don't understand, and how to trust ourselves through the unknown, through whatever may arise, and coming into that place of allowance.
Thank you, Rua. That really needed to be said. I think what I'm noticing is a commonality here of the two things running parallel that we're speaking to is there's an avoidance within our collective to have conversations about certain things, even intellectually. There's also an avoidance within our culture to feel things.
Mm.
Both those things are going to be important for us to move forward. We can't just intellectualize about it. We also have to feel it. We have to be able to feel each other, feel the realness of what's going on, feel the pain and suffering, whether it's ours or not, in order to know how to be sensitive enough to heal it, even if it's just to grieve along with it. And if we can't grieve along with it, we can't feel the humanness in it. And we can't navigate a way that's going to feel safe and comfortable to heal that space either. And that's why people can get lost on the trail if it gets too intellectual. We're no longer feeling connected. And there's no point in arriving somewhere that we're not arriving there in a connected way. And Lex, I want to just offer that to you to comment on if you feel ready, and if it's not the time, you don't need to. I don't want to put you on the spot with it, but are you feeling what's being shared here at the moment on that? And like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what words you guys would use, or human or soulful. I totally understand that there's no point in anything if we don't have heart. You know, I have a heart, and I also am have worked on the other stuff as well. I think I've got a balance. So, but I will be more careful.
yeah, like I like what you're saying about like there's aspects of realness that I want to get our conversation arrive to, but it also needs to happen in the right way, not like with an agenda that's outside of the circle that needs to come into the circle. It's more like, hey, what you're feeling real in your heart right now is probably the most important thing for you to say to help us get there. And so like more so than like a conversation you've had before tonight, the conversation we're having right now, where does that land in you in your heart that you could speak a truth into our circle that's going to move us where you want to go, not like on a big roadmap that's going to take us on a journey out there. Right now, what can you speak that's happening in your life today, this week, that's real in this moment that can help us arrive there together and give us an opportunity to walk there with you?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't have anything right now.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and that's, and we don't have to know. It's okay. But also by arriving where we're most real in our heart, we're closer than ever from that place to be able to speak the next word that's going to get us where we're trying to go.
I wanted to share really quickly that when I first watched the first circle video, Lex had said something about, can we just speed this up? You know, the just like, can we just do this already? And I think Rua was like, yeah, why not? We all know what to do. And when I watched that, it made me think, oh my God, my whole life I've tried to rush things. I've tried to control things. And I didn't understand how that it's like the learning is in the allowing. And it made me think also that we can't rush things because there's people who are just now waking up just because we're awoke and we know and we want to, you know, find this path. It's like there's just so much that's happening that we um, may not know, we may not have an understanding of yet, but by being in this space in the present moment, like you're saying, Shane, like I think Lex probably has so much to offer this circle with who he is, just with a little bit that I've learned about him. But I guess I would also share too, Lex, like I really resonate with you a lot, but I have found that my most amazing learning moments is when I've just let go of the agenda, or probably not, well, not the word I would use, but let go of like what I think needs to happen or what I think I need in that moment. And I just say, I'm here, please just speak to me, come through me, like guide me. It's like a full surrender. And it's kind of like for us to be able to do that in real time on camera, it really takes like a lot of vulnerability and staying out of our mind in a way, and so yeah, I just wanted to put that out there and to share that I think the most important thing is that everything is happening organically here, because our knowing in each of us is really strong, and it's what's going to guide this vehicle that you've created, Shane.
Thank you for saying that. And when you reflected that, I'm like, wow, did I say that? Like, I want to rewrite that and say, slow down, because I realize sometimes I can get excited, and what I need is to slow down. But when I get excited, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Come on, let's go. But that's
Totally.
just people in the dust, because what you said about awakening, like, oh, awoken people or not awoken people, there's so many ways to wake up, and there's so many things to wake up to. And
Yeah.
someone might wake up to something that I'm not aware of, and I might wake up to something they're not aware of, and we can both be awakened to different things and still be unconscious to other things. And
Yes.
teach each other there. And so it's not like, oh, I'm awake, but then they're over here, and then it's like we're actually all aware of something someone else isn't, and not aware of something that someone else isn't. And so I want to bring it back to that, like equal playing field and more of an integrated way of seeing things, and reiterating that need to go really slow enough for the heart to feel each step.
Well, it's a really good thing that, we have this whole thing recorded so that we can go back and rewatch it, slowly. Around like a half past. Yeah, these are definitely very, very powerful, powerful sharings that we're going through. And I definitely resonate, what Rua was saying about awakening to different possibilities. There's so many different aspects to awakening as well. And I also wonder, as each being awakened to different truth, are we all able to tap into that? Because we are collective, because we are consciousness. Yeah, that definitely fascinates me, those possibilities. If I can feel someone else's pain, what it's stopping me from feeling their enlightenment per se,
Beautifully said. Yeah, Mano. I agree. I agree with all that. Like, I feel like I have groups of friends who feel they're awakened in this realm, and they are. And, and then I have groups of friends that are awakened over here in this realm that's completely different. And what they have in their shadow, this group doesn't have in their shadow. And what this group has in their shadow, that one doesn't. But they're all seeing, they're like got their head up above the surface about certain things that they're seeing the rest of humanity asleep in, or still in a pattern in. And I believe, and I want to offer this out to the group for reflection, that not only is consciousness oneness throughout the universe, but even on a smaller scale, there's oneness within the human race of like one being, one organism. And so, yes, we are all cells within that one organism, and we have different awarenesses and enlightenments. And those awakened states somehow resonate through the entire being. There may be manifesting through certain ones of us at a certain time, but somewhere the collective being has that awareness and has that awakened state. And it's a matter of how that spreads through the entire organism at some point and is reflected. And I'll just drop that into the group and let you guys tell me how that lands with you.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm jumping out of my seat here sometimes, but I have more to share. There's this phrase that I keep really close by, and it says "malama ike," and ike has a lot of meanings, but it's one of its meanings is to see, and malama means to care. And so it loosely means to care for what you can see, care for what's right in front of you, care for what's yours to care for.
Mm.
And so that is really what it comes down to for me. When we tune into why our soul came into this body at this time, and we just do that, and we just focus on what we're passionate about and what we feel inclined to invest into, then that's what we're going to wake up to, and we're going to master in this lifetime, and we're going to get all the jewels and all the treasures for that particular thing. And then I can share it with all of you because I went in this very unique thing, and then you went on that very unique track, and you're like, oh, I brought back all of the bounty from this thing. And so the best thing that I feel we can do for collective awakening is be as unique as possible and follow our soul's calling and follow our heart's path, and then share that. And if we all do that, then I mean, peace on earth is kind of inevitable to me. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't happen.
I wanted to say as well that, you know, all of our souls meeting in this moment, in this lifetime, it's been blessed by the divine. And so it takes a level of trusting that whatever is happening in these conversations, even like sharing what he did and you responding the way you did, Shane, it's created this conversation. So nothing is, I mean, it's all trust that it's all happening the way it should, and have keep your heart open. I think in this circle, to be, I said in the beginning before we got on, there's no ego here, and that's, I think, so important, and to be able to have these conversations, you know, it's like, and a lot of trust that there's something even bigger happening outside of us in this conversation. So allow ourselves to have an open heart to share and to receive whatever someone else says, and just to trust that the divine is guiding everything. And there's things that people are going to hear outside of this circle right now when they watch this, that maybe they needed to see what has happened, you know, even in this conversation. And I just appreciate all of you for being able just to talk about it, and just share, and not be upset, and not come from the ego, but to be open to receiving and allowing a conversation to flow. It's so refreshing to me, and I think that's important to keep that theme through every circle, because that is where I think true movement happens, and understanding, and being able to us each individually expand, but also for like that rawness to really reach people.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, Aisha. And for me, you know, it's like it's soul food, and like
Yeah.
you said, you know, that's what creates these like a deep moment, because within us there is something is moved through these conversations. You know, it breaks us out of our shell, and to a certain degree, you know, like I feel things to a more degree. I'm not just a robot on a day-to-day basis doing the regular tasks that I'm supposed to do to survive or live. Yeah, these conversations definitely expands my being to a degree, and I feel like, okay, yeah, I feel like I'm serving what I came here to do, you know, in that kind of like knowing. Yeah, that definitely gives me a lot of joy. Yeah, so thanks everyone for bringing your sense of being into these conversations, and speaking what's true and beyond, you know, beyond like what's right or wrong, but just speaking your truth. That I think that's very powerful. I look forward to more of these conversations and see how far we can go. See what we can, yeah.
Well, we're near the time where we bring ourselves to that moment of pausing the conversation as it's been and moving into that channeling of ourselves. But before we do that, I want to offer the floor to you, Lex, to just like, everybody's gone around and giving a few more shares. And if you have anything you'd like to speak as your truth. Maybe you heard people say things that's not your truth. That's not how you see it, or you understand it, or you believe it. And I would just invite you to take 2 or 3 minutes to speak your truth before we go into the kind of the close, close it out, and then we'll move into the channeling and pull through our whole theme for the whole evening.
Okay, I'm pretty nervous, but as well as all the things you guys talked about and all of that kind of doing, what I would have injected would have been what people say, you know, being human. You don't need the human part, you just need the being. What are you being? And then you can investigate being, you know, and you can think about thinking. You can say, well, when people say we need to get rid of the ego, is that just something that we've sort of absorbed from that it has its own inertia? And have we investigated what ego really is? Is it actually possibly anything? Is our sense of self our ego? If we've done work, do we have an ego that has done work? If we have an ego that has become refined and eloquent, does that mean we have a refined and eloquent ego? Is the conversation where people abstractly talk about dissolving the ego actually very, very off track and stops important conversations that lead to developing something important in ourselves? Is that an important conversation that needs to be heard by the world right now? Because all the people that are waking up are being offered impotent, nutritionally deficient buzzwords, and they don't know any better. So they enthusiastically engage with those in meaningless conversations that don't develop them spiritually. So, you know, if you want me to be authentic, there's work to be done. We have to give people guidance, and that means that some of us need to brush up on some of our communication skills, not just with the universe, but with ourselves. We are having thoughts that need to be optimized. You know, they need to be changed. The languaging, the meanings of association, how we think, these things need to be investigated. I personally would say that ego, the way I've used different terms to different people, but character self is a really useful term I've used. And that a character, like in a book or in a film, is changeable, you know, like you write the character. And so ego is something that can be rewritten. It can be completely investigated, and you might find tremendous things there, as in shadow work, aspects of you that are not being actualized. They're not activated. They're not present in your life. And there might be things which are present, which they're just from your environment. They're just from your experiences. And you can investigate all of these things. And then you could say that if you just stick with the term ego, which is currently being thrown around a lot, and say, well, you know, I brought my ego in. Well, that means nothing. What kind of ego? Your ego is could be anything, you know? So what ego did you bring in, you know? What changes could you make to that ego? What could you add? What could you remove? What could you refine? What could you feed? What could you give nutrition to? What's been starving for attention? You know, so anyway, so this is my kind of languaging. And when you guys are thinking, I'm translating in these ways, you know, and then I'm trying to sound hearty when I respond, and I am hearty. My heart's totally online, right? My heart's totally online. So so there you go. So, but I also don't want to upset you guys. And if you've got a flow and a rhythm and a way you want to do things, and it's right for you and it's the right thing to do, then I can hold back and I can just quietly observe and learn and feel it as well. So whatever you guys choose.
I invite disruption. I want your authenticity without any censorship about how someone's going to receive it. I invite disruption. And I love what you said about the ego. And I think it'd be really good to get an idea of maybe next time how each of us thinks about ego, or our own ego, or what's beyond the ego. Maybe in the collective consciousness, there isn't much awareness of anything beyond that caricature personality of how we show up in the world. And so that feels like a really good way to segue into our next intention.
Yeah. And Lex, I thank you so much for saying that. You know, right when you were speaking, I was like, it's so true that there are these words that get tossed around. And I'm the kind of person where I'm open to new perspective. I welcome it. I want it in my life. And you just showed me that, yeah, what do I really mean by ego? And maybe that's what I need to say and to speak to, not the word ego. And I love that because I think that
Exactly.
yeah, so that's what's needed because there, like you're saying, there's so many people that are just caught up in this lingo, which actually really it bothers me. And look, I did it. So that's yeah. So I love what you said. I agree. I guess what I probably would have said actually, now that you got me thinking, is I would have brought up not bringing defensiveness. I love that there's no defensiveness here. We're just open to learning. So hey, thank you. I really appreciate what you just said. And it's going to help me actually in a lot of ways that I use words to go into the meat of it, not, the packaging.
There you go. Can I speak to this a bit more? So this is the thing. When we talk about soulful, right? At some point we're communicating. So
Mm,
the only way for you to know what I'm feeling is for me to fucking tell you, right?
yeah.
Or what I'm thinking. And so my languaging is really important. And what I was investigating and talking with some people about recently was that there may have been huge periods of time in the past, and you guys may have been searching for it and finding it now, where you have direct experience. You're on a beach. You don't describe the colors, you don't describe the sound, you don't describe everything, you just experience it directly. And so every aspect of that experience you experience, right? But we live in a world now where everything is described, everything is language, it's all vocabulary, we read it, we see it on the news, everyone's talking all the time. Silence is almost impossible to find. And so we are in a world now where if we want to have really profound experiences, we're going to have really profound languaging skills, because our experiences are being described through language and we're constantly translating. And so all the juice, all the soulfulness of life is being lost in very poor languaging. And so all the spiritual people that are talking about being really heart-centered and really soulful, the languaging they're using is soulless and heartless. It's just veneer. So anyway, that's what I was trying to get to, is that I am going to be soulful. It is going to sound intellectual, but we're using our intellect to communicate as well.
What I'm hearing you say is that it's rare for people to have a direct experience because they're experiencing vicariously through others, whether that's through social media or a book or listening to something. I mean, we could potentially fall into that, like, oh, we're this council and we're talking about these things, and someone might not be able to have their direct experience of a spiritual awakening, so they're just listening to ours. So maybe something that we could also go into is, how do we guide people into having their own direct experience instead of just talking about our direct experiences? Meanwhile, people are walking around like, how do I have those experiences? Where are they? Is it under this rock? Like, how do we arrive to being able to have a direct experience if that's such a rare thing that people don't know how to access?
Thank you, everyone. It's been a very potent and charged conversation tonight. It's been we often have to dissolve into chaos to reform into a new organized structure. And the more we can kind of hold our center during the chaos, the better likelihood that we succeed when we come back into the new structure, the new form that we take. And yeah, I would like to invite everyone to take a breath, put your feet flat on the ground, relax your shoulders. Take a deep inhale in, present with your head center. Exhale. Be present with your heart center. Inhale. Exhale. Get present with your gut, your sacral, the tip of the base of your spine, your seat bones. Take a moment to call in the perspective of the higher self. Channel your highest version of divinity that you know how to access and speak with, and open yourself up to clarity. And allow the full conversation of tonight to be present with you right now. The whole last hour plus, all of that to be present around you like water that you're just sitting in. And for all of our benefit, gather that which has touched you or moved you that you feel is the most important thing to highlight before we exit and close tonight. What is it that you feel maybe spirit is trying to speak through all of our mouths and all of our bodies and presences tonight? What message is trying to pull through all of us? Can you access that right now? Can you feel what wants to be said? Can you bring through your wisdom to add on top of that anything that you feel in a very brief way wants to be included before we close the recording for tonight? With that, I'll open up the floor, and whoever's feeling ready, go ahead and share.
I'm feeling ready. Something that came through is that it's safe to be seen and it's safe to speak your truth. And in this space, we are going to probably be maybe triggered on some level sometimes, but we know that it's our own opportunity to grow, and that's also something we can offer each other. So on a huge collective, where it'd be so amazing to think about the world being able to have these kind of conversations like this, where it's safe to speak your truth, it's safe to have your own experience and to honor other people's experience and to learn from it. And in that, there's this flow, there's this allowing. And I'm just so grateful to be here, to further learning how it is, and feeling it in my body and integrating it into my body, that it's safe to speak your truth. It's safe to show up in everything that you are.
Mm.
No one is excluded from New Earth. Everything is included in New Earth. Every part is important. Please just be yourself.
Yeah, what's alive within me is this level of appreciation and gratitude for us to be able to come together and to be able to share our inner truth and to be seen and to see each other as we are, where we are. Yeah. Thank you, Shane, for bringing that energy back together, bringing this group of people. Much needed for my sanity, to say the least. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone for riding the waves that emanate from me. I am being authentic. I'm trying to not overshare and crowd the space, and then find a time and a moment to be me in it. But I'm quite a strong flavor. You don't want too much in the mix, right? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm definitely authentic. My heart's open. I'm here. And thank you for allowing me into this space.
Mm.
Everything is a co-creation.
Yeah, it is. I'm hearing that honesty requires vulnerability. It's a type of nakedness that wants to be met with nakedness. That to share and then for others to stay hidden is doesn't feel received. And then you're just left there alone, feeling naked and vulnerable. So there's a bravery and a trust that, like, if I show this much of my heart, maybe you'll open that much of your heart to connect with me. And we'll have a real sharing. And the point is that we all arrive there together. And that we are all the one organism. Thank each and every one of you. A big hug out to all of you. And thank you, Lex, for keeping us real. Make sure we're not getting too floaty off the ground, too woo-woo, too whatever. Yeah. And yeah, thank you for all the balance of all the perspectives. And may you each continue to bring your most real, raw truth, and not to just speak of situations that exist outside of the circle, but land your words with where it's touching you right now. When you say that, I feel this. And it's not a conversation that I heard somebody say and then they were off there. Like, let's land it here between each other. And yes, thank you for giving me energy tonight by just showing up and bringing your presence, because it's helped me to just gather here with you. And maybe with love and patience from those who watch and listen in, they can be a part of this conversation as it grows and evolves and sharpens. And hopefully we get our teeth into that which is most real to speak about and most worthy of people's time and attention. So I'll close out with that tonight. If anybody would like to say any word before we close our recording. We say good night to everyone. Till next time. Thank you.